everyone. Welcome to another presentation of Mars Revealers, Mars Anomalies, and Archaeology. And we got a cool presentation for you all today as we're going to be getting into the Pyramids of Mars, the Pyramid of Syrtis Planum. And this is the object here of which we'll be focusing on today. Where is it, you say? Well, dead center in the center. Let's zoom into it a little bit. As you can see, there's a lot of things that, well, it's not really all around this area of where the central feature is, which we're going to be dealing with. A few craters here and there. And this looks like it's in the middle of nowhere, which it pretty much is. But believe it or not, everywhere is somewhere on Mars, even if it doesn't look like it. But, so again, this is the feature that we're dealing with today. And, let's go to the next. So this is a little bit better view. So right now it should stand out to you the word pyramid. Definitely this feature looks more archaeological than anything natural. And that's just my opinion, as we're going to look at. This is just a straight up fact. We look down and we're seeing what appears to be a pyramid. All right, and there's the location for everyone. Of course, my big head's in the way as usual. But there's the location for those that want to go find it. And I'll have a link to the MRO CTX image in the description of this video, so you all could click on it and have some fun. But anyway, so this is the feature which we'll be dealing with today. And again, very interesting. You know, real reminiscent of what we're able to see here on Earth, isn't it? And so there's another feature of it. This is an MRO image of it. MRO context image of it, rather. CTX. But let's check it out a little. So it's definitely unique, okay? And it's wouldn't call it or classify it as a perfect geometric pyramid, but it's definitely archaeological and structured with its geometry intact. Now, some may say, well, that's because of erosion or other processes, because this thing is definitely, you know, potentially hundreds of millions of years old. Let's not forget. So, and Mars does not have the erosional capability or capacity like it does here on Earth. Mars is not Earth. I know a lot of people love to compare the two because Mars was once warmer, wetter, whatnot, more Earth-like, but that doesn't mean that its characteristics would be the same and its erosional properties or whatnot, you know. But anyway, that's a different discussion for a different debate and battle later on. But regards to its structures, geometry is what counts, and fingerprint, techno-signature of intelligence applies, and it can be seen. It's really interesting. I used to call this the X pyramid, because it looks more like an X. It kind of reminds me of the X-Files X. I don't know why, because, again, it looks pyramidal. It is pyramidal, but it looks different than the traditional pyramid that we're all used to, right? And there we go, like we see here in Giza in Egypt, you know, orbital satellite views. I've got a couple examples just to show an example. So looking down at this, you know, at this site, it's kind of reminiscent. And enough reason to contemplate why we would say that this is a pyramid, because of its geometry. And we're looking down two-dimension, you know, at a two-dimensional image, you know, so it's easier to spot out from above its geometric layout. Okay, and I could easily see why and where people would get confused and saying, oh, well, that's just like the ones we see here in Giza. But contraire, mon frere, it is not. Again, Mars and Earth and its structures may not even be related. Though they're totally different, they have its own intelligent techno-signatures, and what we see on Mars is far, far, far older than anything that we see here, even from ancient times of our past, that we could see. Okay? What's on Mars is, again, potentially millions of years old. All right? But, again, looking down, so that's, reminiscent, kind of like what we have seen there, what's on Mars there in Syrtis Planum. And again, it's real interesting view. So it's not a far-fetched comment. It's not a far-fetched comment or proposal to look down, and it's nothing wrong with the human nature. It's not pareidolia or anything like that. We're looking down here at an intelligent techno-signature archaeological artifact, okay? As well as what's on Mars. Now, so it's not far-fetched, again, to call what we're seeing on Mars a pyramid, especially when similarities apply. Okay? Again, two-dimensionally, of what we see on Mars, people want to relate it to like what we have seen here and know of on Earth. Even though what's on Mars is far older, and they have a different way, or had a different way of doing things there on Mars. They have an interesting way of fusing their landscapes, I call artscapes, in with their structuring. And the planet whoop-de-doos, the things that went wrong, with it, has affected. I'm not saying that the structures on Mars or features have not been affected by time and the slow process of various types of erosions, but definitely not from wind and maybe possibly from some water, but and or meteoritic impactings over time. But even that is at a minimal. Even when it's struck, pun intended, with meteorite impacts, a lot of the symmetries and the geometries we see on the Martian structures are faring much better than what we're seeing of these ancient structures here on Earth, which are far younger than what we're seeing on Mars. Okay, as exquisite as this may be here on Earth, on Mars it could be a little bit harder to determine because of its age and the way that they had constructed their geometric structures, like pyramids, etc. But here's an example that I got from Byron Corey Dobbs of Blue Planet Red. And in this, if my big head wasn't in the way, you can see again the point that I pointed out to you, pun intended, that what we're seeing is very similar in its geometric shaping, and to consider easily why one would think of the pyramids here on Giza or on Earth. In comparison, though, if you look at the two, again, thanks to Brian and his lined layover of the images, features in question, on the pyramid on the right in Giza, it pretty much matches perfectly. But on Mars, it does not. Though the fingerprint, the footprint, does fall within that parameter. And again, and that's all that's needed. Because again, what we're seeing is the fingerprint, the footprint of intelligence of this techno-signature. But if you follow the lines, it's quite different than what we're seeing here at Giza. And that's not to take away any merit that it is a pyramid. Again, Mars and Earth are two different places. Their structures are different. The way they did things is different. And especially their sizes are far different. But I would say that the one here is the far more advanced than what we're seeing here on the right, as exquisite and advanced and things we cannot duplicate ourselves today. And people think they know the answers of how to explain it. Yet we are the primitive ones, okay, built upon the far more advanced civilization, just like these are the less advanced, as exquisite as it is, of the far more advanced, believe it or not, features that we see here on Mars. Okay, now there may or may not be any connection or relations of the intelligent lives that existed here on Earth that created these things here on the right. Yes, notice I said that had existed, because it's not necessarily, oh, look, we're here, we see it, it's man-made, it's constructed, we can't duplicate it today. You know, that doesn't mean it wasn't some previous human or humanoid or some other civilization here in the past. And just as that point is considered, that doesn't mean that there was a non-human presence and intelligence on Mars that did this in the past. It just shows that this is a civilizational waypoint of things that would be done as their intelligence and their presence on planets would thrive and grow at some point, and to have the basics included, which would be geometry, right? Or mathematical constants and whatnot. So, again, it's not perfect, but certainly enough reason to see the similarities without the green tracings, but the green line tracings over it show the differences right there. So let's get it out of the way. This is not like the Egyptian pyramid, okay? But it is a pyramid and pyramidal. Enough reason and more reasons to study it, let's just say. So this is a Mars Express color image view of it. Okay, so it's really interesting of what's there. And let's do a little better processing of it, help bring it out a little more. Really interesting, and what we get to see is there. What's really interesting also is that there's a crater next to it, nearby, you know. Now, some would say that would have maybe an impact, pun intended, on what we're seeing, you know, wrong with this pyramid. If people want to say, well, it must have been just like the Pyramid of Giza, because we're looking down and look, they look so similar, like the example we just looked at, right? But again, we're looking down at it two-dimensionally, all right, from a two-dimensionally image, rather. So notice the difference, bring out the color better, process it a little more, and look what we get. It's beautiful. It's beautiful, but what else do we get? I just want to pin this note. I'm going to, when I do the book, The Pyramids of Mars, Oasis of the Damned, when I do the chapter for this particular Pyramid of Syrtis Planum, I want to focus in on this, because again, Mars Express has a capability in its images that has a way of showing details that NASA's imagery does not show, or not so easily show, but they are detectable if and once you study the Mars Express data to see, even though it's lower resolution than Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter or whatnot, it shows us details, which I like to call the tattoo. The tattoo is more easily seen, and these things could be checked up and matched up with features we see in NASA's imagery, especially when you hear the madness of which I speak about from time to time, of what I say, artscapes, that this is not a thing of erosion, and the tattoo, as it was, can easily show this fact that this is not of natural origin, especially when you consider all the features that could be seen subtly. You just follow the lines, as it was. Like from this corner of the pyramid, you can see there's a line that runs right up to the crater, pretty much straight. Okay, into the crater rim. And there's features that go away from the crater. You know, you could follow down and trace down. And there comes also, if I was to trace them out, which I will for the book, you can see there's geometry and triangular features, and just, these are not image artifacts. These are not scan lines. These are actual data, features in the data of the relief that sticks out, that's enabled to show us whoever did this here carved it up, and it's more than just a geometrical footprint of a structure, but you could be like a tattoo artist. All right, you can see the subtle features running all along, and how this thing is sculpted, in my opinion, made, formed. I'm not going to dwell too long on that rant, too long, so many of you people can't even fathom it, or let alone really see it. But as I help bring it out more, I will. And the colors help bring out the tattoo more as well. That's what I also appreciate and love about Mars Express. Again, lower resolution, but it's a dual stereo camera. Okay, it's not just one image lens looking down, it's stereo camera. And Mars Express has a quality that, in my opinion, sees through the foo-foo dust. Not as good as LiDAR or anything, but it's got something on it that's able to see the artwork as it was, compared to what NASA's cameras do not have. Okay, even in higher resolution. But you can follow all these features, especially like from this creator. You can follow the lines perfect, how it goes down right into the corner of the buttress of this pyramid, and all the other subtle features that connect on through it. Like from here, follow this line, goes straight up through here, connecting to here. This goes over to here, and this goes right down to here. That's a perfect, pretty much triangle. And that's just one example, because it's got multiple entwined. You know, you can trace all these things out, and if you're a good artist or a good tattoo artist, you should be able to see what I'm talking about. You know, like thatch stitching, or thatch etching, drawing, or like those pewter statues you would see in the stores with all the lights flashing on at different angles, bring out all the beauty and ornateness of its features, especially like dragon scales and stuff like that. This is what this reminds me of. But I'll shut up with that madness for now, but I would just want that point to be made known, because when people see this, they're like, oh, it's a desert, it's all natural. Bullshit. It's not. And Mars Express image data helps to show that all the more, and especially in their color image data, especially how their data loves to be hidden subtly in order to hide that all from you. Okay, that's not me adding the data in there, that's in the data. But anyway, it is quite beautiful, though, because it would make you wonder what the elements are, the materials are that's being used. And in my opinion, it's all metallic. The majority is metallic, not sand and dirt or no dunes or anything. We're looking at something that has been carved over the eons. And yes, and if you consider what we're looking at here to the area of where this sits at the beginning of the video, I'm claiming, yes, and I can make that claim, the whole region has been artistically sculpted, and not just the region, the entire planet has been artistically sculpted on an entire planetary scale. And I've made no secret about it over the years. I made that claim starting from 1998. That's what got Richard Hoagland's attention to me and my claims to begin with, saying, Gary, it's good science, just not yet. I'll leave that at that for now. So, really interesting of what we're dealing with here. Now, back to the reality of the data itself, besides my ranting, what you may call speculation, but yet I see better than you do, because I know better what I'm looking at and how to see it than you do. All right, that's just the reality. That's not, I'm so special as some. That's because I know what I'm doing and how to see it. And I'm trying better and to do better to bring it out better. And I've come a long way, and I've done a lot better job than many or nearly all else in this field, and that's not a boast either. But anyway, so here's another Mars Express color view of this image. I mean, black and white of the color view image, okay? So again, look at all the relief. Never take it for granted. This is not JPEGs, this is not image artifacts, this is in the data. And again, I'd love to know what the HRSC, the high resolution stereo camera aboard Mars Express is using to see the subtle details, which I know one day I'll be able to bring out better, to process the, let's say, peel away the masks as it was, all right, in order to bring that out. But it is a really interesting image. We have two images from Mars Express of this. This is the same image, just processed a little differently and more. And you can see what I was talking about of the relief that helps see the features more stand out at you, you know. I mean, let's look in, for instance, here. Follow the lines. They're subtly seen, but they're there. You know, these are not accidents of nature. This is not trickery or something false by the camera lens itself, like they used to say about Percival Lowell, looking through the telescope and seeing the so-called canals, the lines of Mars. You know, oh, it's just it's artifacts of the lens. Bullshit. Because we get to see what's really there. And in comparison to NASA's imagery, you can't really see that, which tells us whatever element that the high-resolution stereo camera has on it, even though lower resolution, it's able to bring forth these details in a way that NASA cannot. So that just tells me it's not a normal imaging process they're doing. It's really a great feat of creation, and that's to be respected, though I wish it was higher resolution. And there's the second image of it from Mars Express, a little larger. And you can still make out features. Oh, you can see more of the cratering and the pits and all that there and everything that there is to see. But you can still follow lines. You know, this one's a little bit better to see, you know, the etchings, the artwork as it was, compared to this one. But if you would have studied it, the two, you would see that they would match up with everything that we're seeing here on this particular image. Whether it's a difference in lighting position or for whatever other reason. But it's still, all right, it still looks pyramidal. Remember, it's not a perfect pyramid like Giza. All right, but it's still really interesting and enough reason to consider it being a pyramid. And it doesn't have to look like the one at Giza. Again, Martians have a different way of doing things than they do here on Earth. All right, so there's an overlay I did to help bring out not just the details, but just to see how it looks. You know, you overlay it. That's how you use the data. You use the data to test the data. Does that make sense? So it's quite beautiful, in my opinion. Really quite beautiful. Really makes you wonder what the materials are and seeing and what we're seeing. Again, this looks more metallic than anything rocky, let alone any sand. I don't see any typical sand. I know there's a shitload of dust on Mars, iron oxide dust. And what is iron oxide? Rust. And if you have a planet made of heavy metal, you're going to have a lot of rust there. Especially if and when there was water there and whatnot and, you know, things in the atmosphere to be able to oxidize, you know what I'm saying? And when that atmosphere diminishes, you got a lot of dust going on, and there are winds and such. But anyway, what we're not seeing is the creation of winds or anything like that. This is all really, it's really ornately beautiful. That's, wow. But anyway, so to get on the size difference, again, these are much larger than what we see here at Giza. If one was to consider this as being a four-sided pyramidal feature, again, we're looking down at 2 dimensions, and what we went over from corner to corner, 3 miles. Yeah, you heard that right. 3 miles from this corner to this corner. Now, from here to here would be like 1.8, almost 2 miles. All right, but what's the point? I go from corner to corner because that's pretty much the fingerprint of the structure, okay? But anyway, so 3 miles. And that would mean the so-called crater over here is 1.5 miles. It's just as long as the face of Cydonia. Isn't that interesting? And look at those colors. And you can see, again, the ornate handiwork. Follow the lines, follow the lines. And the colors help bring out the tattoo. That's not coincidence. That's not just a trick chance. But anyway, 1.5 miles. So there's a Mars Odyssey image of it. Okay. And it's a pretty good Mars Odyssey image. Still looks like a pyramid, right? So we're seeing multiple image data sources, multiple images that is showing a feature there that looks like a pyramid. It reminds us, again, of what we see there in Giza. So it's not far-fetched. It's not pareidolia. And I'm real tired of that. You know, it's pareidolia is like they say, it's a human thing. It's not your fault. But by default, it is your fault because, you know, you think you may be seeing something and you're not, and yet it really is. It's another classification for you all to dare not speak about it, or they'll make fun of you and just classify some. It's pareidolia. It's a fault of human nature by default. It's not what it is, what it appears to be. Listen to us. We know what we're talking about. Yeah. I got a universal finger salute to that statement, or people that give that without even knowing the data, studying the data, or even doing what I do to compare the data. The data is what counts, more so than any PhD's words, right? Or any institution or any space agency. They all have an agenda, all right? And it's to keep this shit quiet. But we can see here, this is not a fault of our deceptional problem by default in our psyche that, yes, we're trained to see patterns and that, you know, so what? That doesn't mean there aren't any. We're looking at it. It's in the data. A monkey can see that there's a geometrical shape there. So it's not a problem by default. That's how military uses things to look down and, you know, it's not pareidolia to say, hey, there's missiles there being transported here and there, or there's armies marching, or there's things going on, or targets to hit, right? Oh, but there's patterns there. It's pareidolia. Well, you go in thinking like that, then they'll kick you out. Right? And then they'll say you have a mental default by not doing your job accurately for spotting those patterns, which is things that need to be targeted. So let's cut the crap on pareidolia. That's why I don't really get into those discussions with that. Those type of people aren't worth talking to about it. Because, again, they don't do what I do to study the images, to process the images, to study the image data, to get all we can and study every nook and cranny of these features in order to make a determination, because it's the data that counts. Not what someone says it is or isn't. It's the data that counts. Now, regardless, you can think I'm crazy or whatever, some long-haired, red-headed freak, right? Oh, telling you that this is a pyramid, but look at it. Does it look like a fucking pyramid? Exactly. It looks like a pyramid. So the data is what is showing you more so than my words say, right? Now, that's what counts. The data. That's my point. Right. So, again, this is an MRO context image. There's another MRO context image. We have 3 from MRO context image of this Pyramid of Syrtis Planum. See? Though I believe they should give us more. I want more, and at different lighting conditions, especially when the lighting position is on the opposite side. So this side would be dark, this side would be lit. I mean, we need it from all perspectives. And that goes for many features I see on Mars, not just one particular find. It's where it's beneficial and useful and needed. So again, what a piece of work this is. So this is a MRO high-rise image now, and again, this is just a browse image for it. I mean, you could zoom in much more to see this thing, but I just wanted to show you. I'll have a link to that high-rise image also, as well as the CTX image, because this image is the same, I believe, as this one. But they have a context image, which is lower resolution, but then the high-rise image, it comes from the same time the image was taken of the context that the high-rise image was taking of this feature. You know what I'm saying? So there's two different cameras. So we see this from a context image, so it's context image. It's a context for a high-rise image, which is right here. Again, this is just the browse image. I was going to pull the high-rise image in itself and zoom around, but, you know, you all could do that yourself. You know, I don't want to be here more than I have to for you all with a video. But it's interesting. Notice this feature right here. This is definitely a structural part to this where it stands out, and I'm going to study more of the high-rise image itself, because it's an important part that stands out even in lower resolution, and you could just tell by looking at it, this thing isn't normal. This is definitely, you know, structural. And again, you can see that it's not Giza. It's not a Giza pyramid, but it has four sides to it in the geometry. That does not happen in nature like that, okay? Especially of the sizing and materials. So there's a black and white image of it also. So let's look in here. See? Right here. Very interesting. Kind of triangular, but it's wild. I'm just making little notes here, if you will. Yes, I'm moving on, so don't worry. All right. So, as you all know, the people you will get to know and learn is that, yes, these images are two-dimensional. It helps us to see these patterns and see the geometry of ancient techno-signatures and the fingerprints of intelligence. But the rest is you have to guess. Now, what brings us more to life and to better understand and to see better what we're looking at in order to understand this is to view it in 3D, right? So that's what we're going to do with this. We're going to view it in 3D. And again, these are accurate viewings that you will not even get from NASA, that they have the capability for, okay, but they just not publicly using it. They'll use molar crapola, that's garbage, and it gives... Basically, it's what you're seeing in like Google Mars, you know, turn the perspective, and that surface is not flat. The relief is not flat. All of this has contours and dips and rises, and again, much more there to be appreciated, and shows you more of the reality. Okay, so without getting into that big discussion of why I'm saying what I'm saying, just trust me on that fact. And most of you won't give a crap anyway. You just want to see the pretty pictures and see some cool shit there on Mars. And I can appreciate that. And that's what I'm going to focus on. So we're going to watch a spin around of it from ground level going upward and whatnot. So this is of the video picture of that were used for the video to get an accurate understanding and viewing of what we're seeing there on the surface. And you will easily see it's not like the Giza pyramid at all. This thing is far more complex, especially if you were to consider what I showed you in the Mars Express image data. All right, not just of its colors and variations of material, but also the relief that, again, could be matched up subtly, but you have to study the images. They're seen here too, but you cannot... It doesn't have the element that the high-resolution stereo camera has on Mars Express, though being lower resolution, that's able to see the tattoo more. You know what I mean? So there's something on there, and I really want to figure that out and find that out, but I've never seen it published in any of their public websites or mentionings about it. But anyway, so that being said, please sit back and enjoy this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think I'm off my rocker, out of my gourd, or that I'm just stoned, which I am? But it helps you better to see and understand this. But that being said, please like and subscribe, help this channel grow, and we got to break the YouTube CommieTube algorithms that is helping keep this channel at bay, because I'm shadow banned, and that's a long story, but I don't care, because the truth needs to be told and shown, and the algorithms can be broken as long as there's people liking, subscribing, and also giving your comments and questions. Do you think this is a pyramid? Do you see why I and others may think this is a pyramid? Or do you think there's more things to go against this being an intelligent designer creation by intelligence of millions of years? So, that being said, again, please like and subscribe. Hope you enjoy it. And until next time, peace.